Good morning, everyone. Welcome to another monthly reading wrap-up. We are going to go over all of the books that I read in April. There were 14 of them. I also had 3 DNFs. We'll probably talk about that as well. So let's just get right into it. I've got all of my stats written out. I also have my Storygraph app pulled up. Shout out Storygraph. Love you, girl. So I think what I'm going to do, instead of going by like worst to best or best to worst, I'm just going to go in order of when I read them. So the book I read first in April to the book that I read last in April. First we have That Librarian, The Fight Against Banning Books in America by Amanda Jones, which I am very pleased to say that I purchased and I got signed. This is my first ever signed copy of a book, and I'm so happy to have it. And of course there's a boat. The boats are out this morning. I was able to order my copy from an Arkansas independent bookstore that was hosting a book signing with her that I wasn't able to attend. So I was able to order it, and they sent it to me and had her sign it, and I'm just so thrilled. I obviously loved this book. I rated it 5 stars. It was, in fact, one of my only 5 stars of the month. I had one other one that we'll talk about, but this one takes the cake for my favorite book of the month for sure. It really made me emotional. It made me angry. It taught me a lot about what librarians have to go through. Y'all know I love some action steps, and she's got that in the end of the book. Telling you like, hey, how can you fight banning books in America? Or if you're a librarian, how can you protect yourself against, legal action and like whatever. So I really appreciate this a lot. I think she is just wonderful and such a role model, not just for librarians across the country, but just for people in general. I think she has such a compassionate and lovely spirit. Like, she just wants to make books accessible and teach people and give people the freedom to learn and to read, and it's just so admirable. So loved this one, highly recommend it. 5 stars. Next we've got The Lending Library by Eliza Fogelson. This was a library book that I got, and boy did I hate it. If you watched the reading vlog where I read library books about libraries, this is a book that was in it, and I'm shocked that I didn't DNF it because I really did hate it. I hated it so much. The only redeeming quality of it was the fact that it highlighted the importance of libraries in a community. And that seems like it's going to be pretty obvious just by the title that that's going to be a big part of the book. But it just wasn't what I was expecting, because I thought it was going to be a book about a young woman starting a library in her house. And it was that for like 15% of the book. The rest of the book, I feel like, was just about her obsession with having a baby or adopting a baby or just stumbling upon a baby. That was all the book was about, and I don't feel like the synopsis of the book properly conveyed that to me, because I just wasn't prepared for that to be the entirety of the story. And it would have been different if she had gone about it in a healthy way, but the way that she was obsessed with babies was like so detrimental to the rest of her life, to her career, her friendships, her family relationships, her relationships. Like, it took over her whole life, and it became extremely toxic. So I didn't love that. I ended up rating it 2 stars. I'm kind of surprised I didn't rate it lower, but that's where I'm sticking. I don't really care about it enough to think about it too hard. Next we have The Littlest Library by Poppy Alexander. This was in that same reading vlog, and I rated it 4 stars. I just thought it was so lovely. It was the perfect cozy vibes. I read it on a rainy day. It was just really cute and wholesome, and I really didn't have any problems with it. I think the end of the book, if I remember right, it kind of wrapped it all up in a little bow really, really fast, and it just kind of felt a little bit thrown together, but I was okay with it because I liked the rest of the book so much that it really didn't matter how it ended. It was kind of already going to be a 4-star for me. So I recommend it if you are looking for a cozy, lighthearted read. It was very cute. Next is Last Child in the Woods, Saving Our Children from Nature Deficit Disorder by Richard Love, or Lauv, I'm not sure how to pronounce his name. I gave this a 4.5, and I was really, really surprised that I gave it such a high rating because the edition that I read was published in 2008. So while it was updated from the original, which was published in 2005, it was still, very old. It's like almost considered vintage by now. So I really wasn't expecting to get a lot out of it because it was a research-based book, and I knew there have probably been studies that have come out more recently that could have confirmed or denied any of this information. But what I liked about it was a really good balance between academic content and personal stories, because Richard talks about his childhood. He also talks about raising his own children and the importance of nature in childhood. And I just thought it was a really, really inspiring read. And it's just a really good reminder of how important it is to touch grass. And it wasn't so academic that it was hard for me to engage with. So I really appreciated that. I ended up lending it to my mom because I liked it so much. And I thought that she would really appreciate it as well. And this is another book that in the back has action steps for whether you are involved in politics, whether you're involved in education, if you're a parent, if you're a child, and all of these ways that you can implement nature and the outdoors in your daily life or in the lives of your kids or your students or, etc., etc. And I really appreciate that. I love a book with action steps. Then we have the Birdology series by Cy Montgomery. The first one in the series was The Hummingbird's Gift, which I rated 5 stars. I absolutely loved it. It was basically about Cy and this, I forget her name, but she specializes in rehabilitating birds, hummingbirds specifically. And they rehabilitate 2 baby hummingbirds, and she details the process of that and all the ups and downs that they went through. I did not realize how fragile a hummingbird's life is. And I guess it makes sense because they're so small that they would be fragile, but truly the intricacies of the process to get these hummingbirds back into the world and being self-sufficient is insane. And it was wild to read about. It was really cool to read about and really beautiful. I really just enjoyed it so much, and I loved that there were pictures. I'm a visual aid girly. I love a picture, and so to see baby hummingbirds compared to the size of a dime, crazy. Also, their nests are this big. Then we've got The Hawk's Way, which I rated 4 stars. I said in the video that I read these, I didn't resonate with this one quite as much because it wasn't about a human's relationship with a bird as much as it was about a bird of prey. It is such a predatory and violent bird, but there is beauty in that and lessons to be learned in that, and those lessons were conveyed very well in this book, so I ended up rating it 4 stars. Not much else to say about it. And then What the Chicken Knows was the last in the trilogy, and I rated it 4.5. I expected to like this one more because I do have chickens, but I did still really love it, and I loved reading about Cy's experience with owning chickens herself, and the way that they were like pets and also just like animals. So it was cool. I rated it 4.5. It was good, but I definitely liked the hummingbird one the best. Then we have We Will Be Jaguars, a memoir of my people by Namonte Nkumo. I read this on audio, and it was really, really good. I rated it 4.5. It was really long for me. My audiobook listening tends to be like in the 10-hour range, maybe a little bit lower. This one was about 14 hours long. So there were parts that felt like I was really struggling to stay engaged with it. But for the most part, I really, really enjoyed the story. Parts of it were heartbreaking. Parts of it were inspiring. I think it's a really important story to be heard. And I am so glad that she was able to tell her story and to publish it on such a like wide-reaching platform. Let's see, I think I wrote some notes about this one. Yeah, I wrote a few things I'll take away from this read. 1, advocating for your community is beneficial to the whole planet. Small actions are important too. 2, your enemy is also human. Villainizing someone and dehumanizing them is not the way to get them to see your point of view. And 3, colonization is harmful in many ways, whether intentional or unintentional. So that kind of gives you a pretty good idea of what the main, topics were in this book, or at least my main takeaways from it. I really enjoyed it a lot. I would recommend it to anyone. I think that if I had read it physically, it would have been too slow for me, but I really enjoyed the narration of it, and it kept me engaged. Then we've got Not the End of the World by Hannah Ritchie. I was kind of skeptical of this one because right before I started this, I DNF'd a book that was of a similar category, like climate optimism, so I was a little bit skeptical, but I ended up really liking it because she makes all of this information and all of this scientific research so accessible to a reader who does not know science. It was very approachable for me, which was really important, and it didn't feel like she was just throwing a lot of information at me and I was drowning in it. She shared positive climate news and also the negative. She very clearly was telling the reader, hey, this is a climate crisis. We are in the middle of a climate crisis and you should take action to prevent further damage, but the human race is not going extinct in 20 years. We're gonna be okay. We just need to do something. We need to act now. So it was very good. I really liked how many graphs she put in, because again, I'm a visual aid girl. I love to see a graph and a chart. It just makes the information feel so much more real. Instead of me just reading numbers on a page, I'm seeing them depicted in pictures and symbols, and that's just so much better for me. And I underlined so much, as you can see. I feel like I really did learn a lot from this, and it didn't scare me like most climate change books and articles do, but it taught me a lot, and it gave me some good paths forward for my future with environmental care, and it was really good. Very good. I rated it 4.5. I don't know if I said that. 4.5. Then we've got Gathering Moss by Robin Wall Kimmerer, which you know I love Robin. I love her so much. This was her first book, which I didn't know until after I started it. And it's just all about moss and her relationship with learning about moss. And it was interesting, but I did get a little bored. I'm not gonna lie to you. I don't care about moss as much as Miss Robin does. I ended up rating this 3.75, so it's still really good, really informative, really interesting, but it just didn't grip me as much as her other books have. So I wouldn't recommend this to a wide audience of readers, but if you really love nature and you want to learn about the intricacies of moss, this is the book for you. Then we've got another audiobook, 19 Claws and a Blackbird by Augustina Basterica. And this is a book of short stories. and I ended up rating every single story just to see like what the average rating would be if I like put them all together. And I only had one story that was 5 stars, and it was the very first one. It kind of went downhill from there, to be honest. And then my average rating with all of the stories combined was around a 3.25, so that's what I ended up rating it. It was just okay. There were a few like 4-star stories in there. Most of them were around a 3-star though, so it just wasn't spectacular. I'm not really a short stories person anyway, but I am a horror person, so I was hoping that it would kind of, you know, balance out and I would like it more, but I didn't really. It was just okay. I don't think I would recommend this unless you just already like short stories, and then maybe you should give it a shot. The narration was pretty good, I will say that. Then we've got The House Across the Lake by Riley Sager. I started this on audiobook last year, but my library hold ran out, so I picked it up in the library a couple weeks ago, and I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna finish it in print, physical copy style. So I started like halfway through and finished. I ended up rating it 4.5. This was my first Riley Sager. Shocking, I know. And I really enjoyed it a lot. I would say the first half of it probably appealed to me more. I didn't love the twist at the end. I'm not going to spoil anything, but it just wasn't my favorite. It just kind of felt like it was thrown in there, and I didn't love that. But I think it wrapped up well enough for me to still enjoy it and still think, oh, that was a really good book. Like, I do think it was one of my favorite books of April, but it still wasn't like the best. You know what I mean? It could have been better. It could have been better. But I did really like it, and I'm interested in reading more Riley Sager in the future. So if you have a favorite Sager novel, let me know in the comments, because I need to know which one I should read next. Then I read Monstrilio by Gerardo Simano Cordova on audio, which the audiobook experience was phenomenal. Highly recommend the audiobook. I ended up rating this 4.75. It was probably one of the most unique horror novels I've ever read. It was so sad. I've never read a horror book that made me so sad before, but it was weird. It was gory. There were some body horror elements in there, which usually I don't love because I get a little queasy, but this one I was able to handle pretty well. I really liked that there were 4 different perspectives happening. The book is split up into parts. So first we follow the mother, then we follow I believe we follow her best friend next, and then the father, and then Monstrilio himself at the end. And the reason I didn't rate this 5 stars is because it was so long. Like, there were parts of the book in the middle that I felt like I was hardly paying attention because it just felt so drawn out and long, but the beginning was really strong and the end was really strong, and so that is kind of what kept me going. I wanted to know what happened to Monstrilio in the end. If you don't know anything about this book, basically this couple loses their son, and the mother takes a part of his lung and starts to feed it, and it becomes a sentient monster boy who is then their son, kind of, and there's horrors that come with that, and it's really a wild ride, but it is worth it. Especially if you're a horror person, you're gonna love it. If you like gothic horror, I think you'll love it even more. It kind of gave me gothic horror vibes. So 4.75, I really enjoyed it. It was one of my faves of the month. And then lastly, another audiobook, we have The Honeys by Ryan LaSala. I didn't have high expectations for this because it's a YA novel, and typically those kind of disappoint me a little bit. But the audiobook experience was so cool. It was so cool because it had like sound effects in there and different voice actors for different parts, and just the narration was really spot on, and I don't think that I would have loved it as much if I had read it physically. So if you're thinking about reading this, I highly recommend picking up the audiobook because it was honestly a masterpiece. It was like listening to a radio show or something. And the horror elements of it were good. I did listen to part of it while I was driving in the dark, and it kind of spooked me, not gonna lie. I liked the twist of it. It didn't like ruin the book for me or anything like some twists tend to do. It was a little bit culty. Kind of reminded me a little bit of Bunny, but in like a young adult way, and not about bunnies, about bees. So just imagine that a little bit, try to grasp that concept and take what resonates. That's just what it reminded me of. It's very much like High School Bunny by Mona Awad, and I just really enjoyed it a lot. I thought it was wonderful, and the end of it almost made me cry. So that's another horror novel with a sadness element, with a grief element. Apparently I really like that. So those are all the books that I read in April. Let's get into the stats. So 14 books, 4,290 pages. Let's see what the statistical breakdown is. So my top 3 moods were informative, emotional, and dark. Not shocking. Top 3 genres were nature, science, and horror. This is very different than any other month that I've had in the past. I'd never have science up there, but it's cool to see it up there for once. Man, the boats. 43% of the books I read were fiction and 57% were nonfiction. 29% were audio and 71% were print. 21% were purchased this month or this year, and 79% were from the library. So I didn't even touch my physical TBR this month. Whoops. My average rating this month was 4.2 stars, which I think was one of the best months that I've had. Maybe it's equivalent to March. Let's see. Now I'm curious. It was the same as March, 4.2 stars for March as well. Interesting. 71% of my authors were she, her, and 29% were he, him. 71% of my authors were white, so I didn't do great in the diversity department. I'm gonna do better in May, mark my words. 14% were Latinx and 14% were Indigenous. And then page numbers, I have 0 to 99 pages, 30%, 150 to 199, 10%, 250 to 299, 10%, 300 to 349, 30%, and 350 to 399, 20%. That's a hard statistic to say out loud, but you can see it in the pie chart. You get what I'm saying. I didn't do statistics for Make Books Accessible again this month because I didn't donate anything this month. I did receive some books. Most of them were purchased by me, but I won't be donating them until May, so I figured I would just throw in those stats and numbers next month. If you are interested in donating books to be sent to my local library or little free libraries in my area, I have a link in the description that has a bookshop wish list, and all of those books purchased from that wish list will be sent to me, and then I will distribute them to libraries in need, little free libraries in need in my area. The whole goal is to make books accessible in Arkansas because we have a alarmingly low literacy rate, and people do not read books, partially because they're expensive, and it's hard to come across books sometimes when you can't afford them. So I'm trying to make them a little bit easier to come across in my area. I do have a video that details everything, so if you want to learn more about Make Books Accessible again, I've linked the video in the description as well. So that's everything for the month of April. I did a lot of vlog specific reading this month, which was really fun. I think in May I'm gonna try to do a little bit more mood reading though, because there are some things that I definitely want to read that don't necessarily fit into like a vlog specific category that I want to get to. So we'll see how that goes. I am planning a few specific reading vlogs though, so you won't be missing that content, I promise. Here comes another boat. I feel like I have to yell over these boats all the time. So that's going to be all for today. Thanks so much for watching and listening to all of my thoughts on my books and stats for my reading this month. I can't wait to see all the things that I read next month. Maybe we can get above the 4.2 average rating next month. What do we think? Is it possible? I don't know. I'm planning on reading more horror next month because I've really been in the horror mood, especially after finishing Monstrelio and the Honeys. So stay tuned for that. Hopefully we'll find some good spooky books next month. But if you want to see more from me, you can subscribe to this channel. I post every Thursday if I can make it happen, which so far I've only missed one Thursday this year. So hopefully that trend continues. But yeah, go ahead and subscribe, like the video if you liked it. Leave me a comment with Riley Sager recommendations or any other recommendations that you have for me. But that's gonna be all for today. I'll see you next week. Love you so much.